Welcome to Roy Morgan's inaugural webinar on Australian farmers and agribusiness, with a focus on trust and distrust in brands in general and agribusiness brands in particular. Today we're going to unpack some fascinating insights into the people who keep us all fed, farmers. Let's begin then with some context. It's undoubtedly been a challenging few years for farmers, having to deal with COVID and then a succession of weather events, all while trying to manage rising costs and inflation and a smaller pool of workers. Farmers were expecting price relief for fertiliser. It didn't eventuate. Labour shortages meant paying more for workers. Contract harvesters are in such demand they're expensive and unreliable. Jobs scheduled in 30 days are blowing out to 60 or more days. It's become a bidding war. Transport costs and delays are caused by increasing demand and, again, labour shortages. When frustrated farmers try to buy equipment to do the work themselves, the costs have soared. That is, if anything's available. Rising costs caused by shearing labour shortages are a big strain on farming. Vax issues and then a shortage of New Zealand and interstate shearers, so farmers are getting out of merinos and into dorpers. The cost of natural disasters is being felt, but perhaps not as widespread as we're hearing about. So, here at Roy Morgan, after hearing from well over 1,000 farmers, some 1,230 farmers to be precise, we have a wealth of insight into the challenges farmers face and the brands that they trust and distrust, both in the overall economy and in the agribusiness sector. So why is trust and crucially distrust so important? Well, trust is the foundation of all human connections, from intimate relationships to everyday business transactions. It's the glue that holds together relationships, both personal and business relationships. Put simply, trust is the cornerstone of a sustainable future. And during the pandemic, businesses who had trusted relationships with their suppliers and customers found there was an added bonus. When critical decisions needed to be made, and fast, trust enabled businesses, including agribusinesses, to operate on trust, often going way outside the contractual arrangements. Trust also has positive material impact. It goes way beyond the communications and onto the balance sheet. More than 3/4 of Unilever's market cap is made up of trust, an extraordinarily valuable asset. But it's distrust where our deepest fears, pain and betrayal surface. Roy Morgan data on distrust and our lived experience since 2018 has shown distrust can destroy a brand's reputation and create a negative material impact. Briefly revisiting our poster child of distrust impact, AMP was once a trusted, iconic brand, but since the disastrous reputational damage of the Royal Commission, it's lost 82% of its market value. And of course, it's not just AMP. Facebook, Rio Tinto, Harvey Norman, and more recently Optus and Medibank are all examples of companies whose market value, revenue and leaderships have been materially impacted by brand shock and deep distrust. And distrust, the shock of discovering we were foolish to trust too much, can threaten the social license to operate of entire industries, not just brands. So how do we measure trust and distrust? Well, we're Roy Morgan, so we conduct a survey, and it's a continuous survey. We're now in our 6th year of asking 1,800 Australians each and every month which brands they trust and which brands they distrust. This research is open-ended and unprompted, and it means for people who nominate a brand, it's so top of mind that they put it ahead of all other brands swirling around in their consciousness. We also ask people why they trust or distrust the brand they nominated, and we record verbatim exactly what they say, in their own words. Our data scientists then analyse the hundreds of thousands of words and themes using a combination of AI and HI, that's human intelligence. For today's webinar though, we'll be focusing on farmers, the true backbone of this wide brown land. Where would we be without them? Here at Roy Morgan, we conduct regular surveys among farmers, and our special agribusiness panel includes a wide range of farmers, from dairy farmers to cropping farmers, farmers on big farms and small farms, and everything in between. So, what can we reveal about Australian farmers and their current challenges? In this special Roy Morgan survey of farmers, we asked what are the biggest farming challenges for you? So how do they describe the challenges? They use language like input costs, fixed costs at the farm gate, the challenge of fertiliser costs, the variable climate, and my personal favourite, first it was drought and fire, now it's rain and sodden pastures. Who'd be a farmer? So when we quantify these results, the AI and the HI, inflation and costs is really the biggest challenge facing farmers, with over a quarter of farmers referring to something in this category as their major challenge. Inflation and cost-related pressures are having an impact right across the economy, but the issue's affecting some of us more than others, and as we've just seen, farmers are feeling the effects of inflation particularly hard and in particular ways. But some farmers are feeling it more than others. Those with a revenue of more than 2 million were much more likely than other farmers to say inflation was their biggest challenge, 65% more likely in fact. Cropping farmers were 35% more likely, and those farms of more than 2,500 hectares were 19% more likely. Weather and staffing issues were the next most common challenges, although this survey was actually conducted prior to some of the more extreme weather events that occurred later in 2022. Now, looking at the general brands that farmers trust and distrust. The top 3 most trusted brands in the country among farmers are Woolworths, Bunnings and Coles. In fact, very similar to the general population. It is noticeable though that the actual scores for those 3 brands are lower for farmers than for the general population. On the other hand, some brands like Toyota are more trusted by farmers than they are by the general population, but they don't make it into the top 3. Now looking at the other side of the coin, distrust, where our deepest fears, pain and betrayal surface. The top 2 most distrusted brands among Australian farmers are Facebook and Telstra. These are the same as for the general population, although farmers distrust Facebook slightly less than the average Australian and distrust Telstra slightly more than the average Australian. Farmers also distrust Westpac. More about that soon. So looking now specifically at brands in the agribusiness industry, which brands do Australian farmers trust and distrust? Our Special Farmer Agribusiness Trust survey showed that Elders was the most trusted agribusiness brand among farmers. It seems for farmers that Elders is synonymous with the agribusiness industry. Nutrien and CRT rounded out the top 3. So why do farmers trust Elders? Well, as they said, they've provided excellent service in our livestock enterprise as well as in real estate when we were selling our main farming property. They've traded with Elders for a long time, generally had good service, long-standing company, good history, great brand, strong service orientation, there's a theme here, and offer support to clients for the many facets of their business. In general though, farmers trust agribusiness brands for many of the same reasons that all Australians trust the brands they trust. Good service, quality, customer relationships, staff and reliable products and services. But it seems a deep personal connection is of particular importance to farmers. Things like maintaining a relationship and having helpful, knowledgeable and professional staff really stand out for farmers. Actual comments by farmers include Zoetis has knowledgeable people on the ground, Rabobank, just let us get on with being farmers, Nutrien has a long history and solid reputation. It employs good people who work with their customers. My local CRT store always gives me honest, good advice. See the pattern? Now, farmers distrust agribusiness brands for being dishonest or misleading, unethical, expensive, low-quality products, and being too profit-driven. In the words of farmers, and they're pretty tough words, Monsanto is selling unsafe chemicals. It changed the name of banned chemicals in the US to use in Australia. We bank with CBA and have personal experience of their deceptive behaviour. Westpac has no interest in family farms. All you get is call centre service. And Fonterra squeezed dairy farmers till some went broke. Looking now at agribusiness banks in particular, and banks are important in the farming industry, we can reveal that NAB is the agribusiness bank most trusted by Australian farmers. Rural Bank, a subsidiary of Bendigo Bank, is the second most trusted, closely followed by Rabobank. Like Elders, NAB is synonymous with the agribusiness industry. As farmers say, they have a good understanding and an appetite to support agriculture in Australia, particularly around innovation and sustainability. They form good relationships with customers and work in their best interests. They provided financial assistance to us during the pandemic. Now, we at Roy Morgan have found in our research into trust and distrust over the last 5 years that when it comes to distrust and bad behaviour, people have really long memories, especially in the case of banks and particularly in farming communities. Distrust can actually be intergenerational. I suspect there'll have been some memories formed over the last few years of COVID. Probably many memories of behaviour of banks, some good, but some really bad. And unfortunately, the bad ones seem to carry on longer. So why do farmers trust agribusiness banks? Farmers say things like NAB has a good understanding and appetite to support agriculture. NAB looked after us when other banks didn't. Rural Bank puts the farmer first. But of course, there's a flip side to every coin. In this case, a much darker side, distrust. Commonwealth Bank is the most distrusted brand by farmers in the context of agribusiness. Westpac is the second most distrusted bank. In the words of farmers, CBA doesn't always do the right thing by agriculture in difficult times. CBA's closure of branches in regional Australia is forcing people online. Westpac was disloyal after many years of business with them. And Westpac doesn't support rural industries, and closure of branches in regional areas makes it impossible to operate with them. It's now my reluctant duty to bring this to a close. I'd like to acknowledge the work of David Laffin, who's the head of the Roy Morgan Risk Lab, and Adam Ray, and the whole team that works on our agribusiness research here at Roy Morgan. You might like to access the Agribusiness report or have a report prepared for you, or even ask some further questions of our farmer panellists. Just go to our online store. Thank you for joining us.